So joining us now, we have Shota Gvineria, Economic Policy Research Center of Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program tonight.
Thank you very much for your interest in the topic.
So as we're looking at whatever's happening in Georgia right now, is there a risk that the country might be falling into the enemy hands? Do you think that there might be some sort of an intervention from Kremlin that's been undertaken in Georgia?
Well, actually, what we see at this point very clearly is that if before we were speaking about the pro-Russian policies of the Georgian authorities, now we see that we have passed that point already, and now we see a Russian policy being implemented by Russian methods, by the Russian proxies in Georgia. And these Russian methods actually are very well known to the whole world. This is harassment, this is violence, anti-constitutional and illegal detentions, the beatings of everybody who has an opposing and critical view, Russian-style propaganda, which is trying to discredit all the critics of the regime. So this is what we're looking at right now. So I wouldn't even say that we have to wait and see if Russia comes in or not. I would say that at this point, Russia is in control. It is Russian policy being implemented in Georgia.
Now you're saying it's Russian policy that's being implemented here. I mean, we're also talking very much about the Georgian Dream Party that's currently heading the Georgian government. Now, looking at also what our viewers can see and what we've picked up on our very own Don Arlis within Georgia not that long ago, these protests, they seem to be growing with more numbers, more, let's say, strength. We see also more repression on the other side. How is that impacting the political opposition? Is that also now translating into more political, let's say, strength on the other side? Will this now potentially, because we have those elections coming up in Georgia as well, will this affect that later on this year?
So I would say this wave of protest is really unique and different from all the other protest rallies or the waves that we had in the country, unfortunately, quite often, in recent past years, because this protest is basically organized by the young people, the students and the school kids who are actually coming out to the streets to protect Georgia's future in European Union, in NATO, and in the free world. So there is, at this point, there is really a limited role of the political discourse and politicians and opposition parties in these demonstrations. I think the political parties also felt the necessity to yield the stage to the young people and to the voice of the future of Georgia and the real future of Georgia, because these young boys and girls, they are really amazing. This is the Gen Z generation. They're organizing this protest in an absolutely different way. They cannot stay in one place for more than an hour. They are roaming the city. They have multiple locations for protest. They have these peaceful marches from one place to another. They coordinate as they go. And it's really difficult to follow for the authorities, too. I would say they're really... we have not seen anything like this before, and the countermeasures from the government side actually is very difficult to plan in these circumstances. That's why they feel that the process is getting out of hand, and that's why they reverted to the harassment and violence, and they have really started to address and handle those protests the way they do in Minsk and in Moscow, because they feel that they cannot effectively control these young boys and girls.
But has it, if I may, just a quick follow-up, has it had any impact? And it needs 3 readings. This bill needs 3 readings in Parliament to then become law. I do believe that it's on track to continue in that process. Has it at all altered how members of parliament vote? Has it altered the course of the government in moving this at all? I mean, we've seen these scenes on the street, as you say. Has it changed the course of the government's policy?
Not at this point. The government hasn't shown any signs of actually hearing the voice of the people in the streets. In opposite, what we see every day is the aggravation of this absolute madness. I would not refrain from using this word from the part of authorities. We see that they refuse to even speak to our Western European partners and the counterparts. Today, we heard that the chairman of the parliament refused the visits of the European counterpart delegations to Tbilisi. We hear from the government side that it does not matter how many people are against it and how long this protest will last. They will still bring this process to an end. They say that it is of a principle important for some reason to them to adopt this law. And this is still the main narrative. So they're not backing off. They're not showing any signs that they will hear the voice of the vast majority of the population, which is so clearly against this law.
So from what you're saying, we can clearly see a picture where the government seems to be going kind of against the will of people. And that only paints a picture where there is weakness, because there is that, domestic conflict going on. Do you think that this could be a leeway, a potential gateway for Russia to actually try and infringe on Georgia's sovereignty, as there is this domestic fight going on?
Well, actually, I think you're right, because when government starts massive harassment and violence against their own population, it is indeed, as you said, a sign of weakness. A strong government which feels confident in carrying out their policies, they do not have to impose this kind of brutal actions on their own societies. So I would say that at this point in time, it feels like the processes are really managed on day-to-day basis by the Russians and the Russian advisors of the Georgian Dream government, because you can see the exact analogies in the messaging, in the way they have organized and printed this banners, propaganda banners discrediting the prominent members of civil society and NGOs, and they have very quickly have put up those banners in front of every civil society organization in Tbilisi.
So the devil is hard at work with the propaganda strategy.
Not only propaganda, I would say it's just a discreditation of the free voices in Georgia with quite a brutal way. And this process is largely managed by Russia. And it's a Russian signature, and I can feel I'm learning Russia's ways of waging hybrid warfare on its neighboring countries, and I can see the pattern. I can see the signature that this is basically something that Russians have planned, and they have given this plan to their proxies in Tbilisi, and now they're watching carefully every step of the implementation. And I'm pretty sure that they're not happy with the way things have played out in up until today, because they have lost all the remnants of the credibility and legitimacy they had previously. Now people are more angry, more and more people are opening their eyes to the reality where we woke up Before we were saying that, well, if we continue this way, we will soon wake up in Minsk or Moscow type
If
of
we
regime.
continue this way,
Today
I
the day
want to
has
jump
come.
on that
Today
one,
the day has
Shota.
come.
Yeah. If we continue this way, your words there are interesting, because on that you mentioned already that there have already been refusals by the Georgian government looking at meetings with the European Union officials, and I believe even also the special rep of the EU, Mr. Tovia Klar, has tweeted on this, I think within the last sort of few hours. Our relationship is supposed to be based on shared values and on support for strong civil society, where lists of enemies of the people, anonymous phone calls have no place. Now, because of that process, I mean, Georgia is on that pathway to EU membership that was recently made up last year at the end of the European Council in December. But how much of this, let's flip it around, how much of this potentially could be maybe leveraged by the Georgian dream, by the Georgian government versus Europe, rather than just pulling at the very end? Is it leverage here, or is it Russia, or is it potentially both? How do you see it?
Well, I'm afraid that Russia will try to leverage this uncertainty and turbulences as they did before in all the countries of the region, and we have seen that Russians know how to capitalize on the processes that are getting out of hand. On one hand, yes, they will try to exacerbate processes and make things even worse. On the other hand, the Georgian Dream government, I think, should be really worried, because the processes are really getting out of hand and they are not able to control processes any longer, and more violence and harassment they bring to the streets of Tbilisi, more anger they bring to the population, and it increases the scale and magnitude of the protests. So I don't see any positive outcome from this for the Georgian Dream government. There are elections coming up in November. It's pretty soon.
It's very soon. It's very
soon.
soon, and Georgia is among one of those countries that is definitely going to have an election. And as we're reporting on the region and on this very case as well, we're going to report on that as well. Shota Gvineria, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.